Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Daubney from the ICCE Method and various other projects, and I'm honored to be here today on Disrupt Everything with Isra Garcia. Today, we will talk about, hopefully, psychedelics, cold exposure, meditation, breath work, personal betterment, helping your community, adventure, action, excitement, and anti-aging.
Reinvent yourself. Welcome to the Disrupt Everything podcast series with Isra Garcia. The opportunity to live in a permanent state of reinvention and change as change happens. A space for human potential, action, holistic high performance, ultra productivity, experimental lifestyle, unstoppable attitude, disruptive mindset, coaching and self-discipline as a lifestyle, modern stoicism, impact marketing, connected leadership, and whatever comes next.
This is it. We have today an international guest, and as we are talking in English, and as you've seen in the intro, we have an English speaker, an English guest, international guest. His name is Jeff Daubney, and today we have a very powerful interview, and very powerful conversation, and very powerful man. He says, surrender to what it is. Ice cold. Ice is cold. Suffering is necessary to make gains. You are the universe. You are everything. The kingdom is within you. You are health, wealth, and love. Jeff Daubney in Disrupt Everything podcast series. Jeff, thank you for being here, and thank you for making the time and the attention for us to be here.
It's an honor, Isra. Thank you as well for having me.
Welcome to Disrupt Everything podcast series. In this new episode, we feature an interview with Jeff Daubney about cold exposure, biohacking, longevity, anti-aging, psychedelics, adventure, power. You've seen the power in Jeff, right? Disrupt, stand out, and master, but only yourself. Nothing else is needed. Become your own master, and whatever you do and wherever you are, in the act, you will be true, free, and limitless. This is Disrupt Everything podcast series, the 1% League, and I'm your host, Isra García. Welcome to this podcast. As a podcast of reinvention, disruption, productivity, holistic high performance. It's a space for decoding the limits of human potential, and also to discover and to untap what it means to live an extraordinary life. People like Jeff, people like Seth Godin, people like Robin Sharma, people like Wim Hof, people like we had like 150 guests in more than 250 episodes, and this is only a creative project designed to destroy the perfect and enable the improbable, and demonstrate that in practice what seemed impossible in theory is possible, and disruptors like Jeff show us the way. This is a series of episodes that piece together and dissect the big keys of the top 1% of the world's biggest disruptors, leaders and teachers and masters, making what seems to be inaccessible accessible for the remaining of us. And today, again, Jeff Daubney with us on a very deep episode on how to be powerful, which is one of the things that really impacted me on Jeff, and power, but the sense of yin and yang together. That is power. That is what I've been taught. That is what I've been learning, and this is what Jeff just showed me without even meeting or even interacting so much. And who is Jeff? Jeff Daubney. Sorry for my rusty English. Sometimes gets in the way. Is an anti-aging pro vitality specialist based in Tulum, Mexico. He is the co-founder of the International Council of Cold Exposure and the ICCE Method. Jeff has over 15 years of coaching experience in the fitness and wellness industry. After being introduced to our friend Wim Hof, to the Wim Hof method, in 2019, where he attended his first workshop in early 2020, he found an opportunity to use his coaching skills in this space. And then within months, within years, he had built a thriving international community, and he's hosting more than 130 breathworks and ice bathing events annually all over the world. Moreover, using his free driving background and teachings from big wave surfers, Jeff also has developed a breathwork protocol that we will talk about it, that routinely and repeatedly where he sees clients break breath hold personal records. Jeff has worked with athletes, top elite athletes, and executives looking to optimize for success, weight loss to clients seeking for profound life changing. Jeff also finds inspiration from thought leaders like Gary Brecka, Andrew Uberman, Peter Attia, Dan Brühl, and many others. Jeff's background includes more than 10 years of free diving experience, certification, and accredited or cold water therapy practitioner's diploma from the International Practitioners of Holistic Medicine. He also works on holistic performance, and he offers in-person and digital coaching to executives along with digital certification for instructors, breathwork, and cold exposure. He's also part of a retreat team called Metamorphosis Tulum, which is part of optimization retreats. We will talk about this, and we will also put the link on the podcast show notes. They have something coming up. And he works in a project called Agua Sagrada Adventure Park. And Jeff is also co-founder of CBDVs, and which has been seen in Shark Tank 2021, sorry. And after all of this, I just close this introduction with a quote that also grabbed my attention. It says, "Getting cold in the morning with my friends makes me feel strong all day. And when I feel strong all day, I make better decisions in every part of my life." Thanks, Jeff. Welcome to Disrupt Everything podcast series. And after reading all of this, and the only question that I repeat in every podcast, because for me is the starting point, is what has been your top life milestones and most impactful moments? And I know you are a very focused man, and this is why I add and what has been the learnings of each of these moments?
Thank you, Isra, for the amazing introduction. And to answer your question, my top current milestone is finding peace in my life. If you were to take a cross section of my family and friends, they would tell you that I was a very, very high energy. If they were being kind, they would say that I was high energy. If they weren't so kind and maybe more honest, they would tell you that I was a complete wild man. I was somebody who had to expel energy and exercise 8 or 9 hours every single day. And I have now found peace without having to be completely exhausted. I can find peace in the moments of my day in a conversation with somebody. I can sit still now. I can breathe. I was a person who was always in movement. I don't think I sat down at all in my 20s or 30s and into my early 40s. Sitting wasn't really something I ever did. And that limited me to be able to connect with other people. I was definitely very alone for a long time. Yet, I love community. I love hearing other people's stories. And that ability to change in my later 40s has helped me to find peace, to understand that I'm not a body and I'm not my thoughts, but I'm actually an awareness, a consciousness, and a soul. That's actually who I am. My identity is Jeff Daubney. But the knowing, the realizing that I'm actually an awareness and a soul, and I'm an energetic being that has no beginning and no end, gave me peace. And that's the milestone that I've most recently achieved and makes me feel immensely proud of myself, that understanding, because now I don't have any angst. I don't have any anxiety. I rarely operate from a flight or fight point of view. I operate from a parasympathetic point of view. My rest and relaxed is my state of being. And it allows me to be able to sit here and enjoy this time with you and enjoy my time with other humans as well, enjoy being in nature, and just being as opposed to doing. One of my favorite quotes, I took it from somebody, but we're human beings, we're not human doings.
One of the biggest things I ever discovered in these 4 years of journey is that, which I am blessed, by the way, but at least mine, and maybe this is why we resonate, I always had the feeling or the belief that in order to be, I need to do. If I do, I be. And then when something breaks this pattern, everything falls down, right?
I still deal with that mindset, that idea culture, like that. I'm a man. I must do. And now, when I'm allowing myself to be, when I do, I'm much more effective. I can take the work that would have taken me 6 hours before, and I can accomplish it now in a much shorter period of time. And that's simply because I can be, and being for me is breathing. Being for me is having a breathwork practice. As you can see, I'm surrounded by plants. I'm always enjoying just being with the nature. That's a much different than if you met me 15 years ago, or even 5 years ago.
So what would you say has been the most critical steps, or the most critical steps to be in this mindset? I won't say mindset, I won't say state of being, peace state of being instead of peace state of mind.
The most critical steps were gaining the knowledge. I'm so lucky to have some absolutely beautiful in-person mentors, but then in this world of digital mentors, I learned from Bob Proctor. I learned from several others as well. And just being okay with letting go and just being who I am and being accepting of who I am. And those critical steps were multifold. And to be honest with you, Isra, sometimes I would have it, and then sometimes it would be gone for years. And then sometimes I would have it. And there was this blend of learning from other humans, learning from nature, and then learning from myself in order to not let it go. And it's not to say that it's not a process, but I developed the tools to be able to come back to center. I use this term all the time. I used to be trying to do it. And then I learned to turn a dial, but that dial would spin. Now I don't have a dial, I got a button. And I push that button and I come back. And it's proven to be wildly effective for me in my personal life, in my business life, and also in my relationship with myself.
Can you guide me through your most, because you said a wild man, a man of action, a man that is been doing so much. I'm sure, and I was 100% sure of this without even knowing you. It has been through a lot of self-experiments. So can you guide me through your most fascinating or let's say surprising self-experiments, and what have you found in them?
Yeah, I would, and I can go through a couple of them if you like.
Please.
I grew up in upstate New York, and I grew up around a ton of people who were just fantastic athletes. And my maturation process took time. I didn't get what we call our man strength until I was in my middle 20s. I didn't have that in high school. I didn't have that in university. And when it came on, I surprised myself by doing some physical things that I didn't know I could do. I ran a sub 5 minute mile. I was able to do 1,000 push-ups in under an hour and a half. Isra, in 2004, I was 29 years old. I lived in Alta, Utah. I skied every single day of that winter. I would ski 7 or 8 hours a day. I would only sleep a couple of hours because I was very busy keeping myself entertained because the skiing, I still had more energy. And I surprised myself because I did that 130, 140 days of that year when I was 29 years old with no sleep. And I don't advocate. One of my biggest things I know for pro vitality, anti-aging is actually now I sleep 9 and 10 hours a night, to be honest. But I amaze myself in the physical place that I could do that I was able to do that because I didn't have a lot of confidence in my physical self when I was younger, because my maturation process took longer than other people to develop into a person who had that sort of strength. And when I was a young man, that lack of physical strength contributed to my lack of mental strength. It didn't give me a lot of confidence. So I went through a period of 10 or 15 years where I had to continuously prove to myself that I was valuable in that place. And it all started with the physical. And then as I got older, I started to amaze myself with how I could change how I would think. And I could use my thoughts to control my body. And it goes back to Bob Proctor again, this idea that you would never say am hand or am arm. You would say my hand, my arm. My body is something I have. It's not the entirety of what I am. That's when I started to be able to hold my breath for long periods of time, when I could quiet my mind by using my physical body to do things that made me feel good about myself. But it was in the mind. It wasn't just in the body. And that I learned when I got a little bit older. And when I learned that, I learned how to connect to my spiritual self. And when I learned to connect to my spiritual self, my emotional self became centered. I didn't act in a way that was driven by my emotions. I acted in a way that was driven by my heart, by my limbic brain, by my ability to be happy with myself.
How you start developing? How was your maturation process physically, and how it contributed mentally? Because it looks like that what you've seen, or what you were saying, like you started going up, and you're still going up. And what has been this how has been this development and maturation process?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's the integration of the physical first for me when I was younger, and then changing that to the mental approach first. So I now, if I'm doing anything, it doesn't matter what part of my life, I think of it in 4 parts: the mental, the physical, the spiritual, and the emotional, or the emotional and the spiritual. And when I take that approach, I find I get the outcome that I desire, whatever that may be. And that approach means making sure I have a breathwork, meditation, exercise, activity process every single day. You know, I hear Alex Hormozy, who I think is amazing in business. I hear him say, "I'm a 1 cup of coffee guy, but F your morning routine." I can't do that. I can't forget my morning routine because that's what sets my path for the day. And while I've learned so much from a guy like Alex Hormozy, I'm not him. So I can't take what he's saying and adapt that to me. That's his. My way is actually getting up and having a gratitude practice, hand on the heart, hand on the sacral chakra, and taking 10 minutes to give gratitude and understand who has gratitude for me. And then getting physical. But I get up, I do the same thing. I have my water with salt or electrolytes. I make a cup of tea. I go out in the nature and I breathe. I have my shoes off and I walk under the sun. But all those things start before the business day starts. But I'd like to think that that's actually the start of the business day for me.
Because it truly is, because you are balancing and calibrating your 4 human potential dimensions in order to get the best performance of your whole being.
You couldn't have said it. I couldn't have said it any better than you just did. And you know what? It leads me to know that I used to emulate. I wanted to emulate Tony Robbins. I wanted to emulate Andrew Huberman. That didn't serve me. I'm not them. I can only be me. And when I became comfortable being me, I'll be honest with you, Isra, I didn't have to try anymore. Everything came to me in business. Everything came to me in my love life. My relationships with my team, with my family, even my most challenging relationship with my mother became beautiful because I started being me. I stopped trying to emulate. I learned from Bob Proctor. I learned from Hormozi. I learned from Peter Attia. I learned from you to be a better version of me. And that's really, if you want to take the umbrella of that, that's what happened when I integrated mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional approaches to my life, and I made the Jeff Daubney way. And I'm not saying the Jeff Daubney way would work for anybody else, but I can tell you it works beautifully for me. And when I became comfortable with being me, the whole world opened up to me.
I think you nail it. You nail it in the way that has been one of the most powerful strokes or fragments of the 250 episodes I run, because the moment you stop doing what we say we should do, and the moment you start liberating yourself from your own discipline and from all the limits that you need to have to be somebody else that you are not, which you already are, then the same thought or feeling that enslaves you frees you up.
I couldn't say it better. That's
it's just because
said.
I'm experiencing this, like this being my 4 year journey. Like when you even they in Zen they call the true being, the true man, true woman, which is, it doesn't matter what you do, it's always perfect. It's because you are the Buddha, which is holding everything. Like beautiful, Jeff, incredible. Jeff, what are your most? You've been also working on somehow. You truly work on biohacking in your retreats. With different from different perspectives, also physical, emotional, intellectual, mental, spiritual. So what are your most effective do-it-yourself hacks that you have found in your career or in all these years?
Putting a focus on action, adventure, and excitement. I love supplements. I love breath work. I love ice bathing. I love jumping off a 20-meter cliff and doing a backflip into water. And when we regresar a la niñez, when we allow ourselves, yo hablo español también. we'll stay in English.
De puta madre.
It's Spanglish. But action, adventure, and excitement, because I love all the people in the pro-vitality, anti-aging space, but oftentimes it becomes very granular. Right? You must do this much zone 2. You must do this much VO2 max. You must eat a certain way. You must think a certain way. You know what serves me best? Making sure that there's action, adventure, and excitement in every part of my life. You want to see somebody who's really living an amazing life? Have an ikigai. Understand that you have to get excited. You have to scare the shit out of yourself a little bit all the time to make sure you're alive. And for me, I'll be honest with you, unless I'm with our good friend Woody, I don't drive super fast anymore. I try to control. We just did in Miami recently, but I wasn't driving. But I really like it in connection to nature. And that action, that excitement, that challenge is really, to me, more integral to my process of anti-aging than taking certain supplements. Yet I take a million supplements and I pay close attention to my diet and I exercise. But for me, you want to get a little scary? Great. Let's set up an ice bath at 0 Celsius or 32 Fahrenheit, and let's jump in there for a half an hour and see what happens. That's exciting to me. Let's go and jump off some cliffs. Let's go do a run that seems like it's not doable. Whatever it may be, that's what's exciting to me. Let's go swim with some sharks, whatever it is. That to me is the basis of my way of taking an approach for anti-aging that keeps me wanting to do it tomorrow.
That's so interesting because it just takes you back to what we have available all the time. We just need to. We don't need to invest huge amounts of money to go into action, adventure, and excitement. It's always there.
The last time I met, I couldn't agree with you more. And the last time I met with our great friend Jorge, he didn't know we were going to do this, and I didn't know we were going to do it. But I said, "Hey, you want to do 400 push-ups today?" And he said, "Yep." And then we just did it. Well, as you know, Jorge's 20 years younger than me. And it was exciting because I wanted to make sure I could keep pace or maybe beat him a little bit. That creates that response, that excitement response, that let's take action. And when I say action, adventure, excitement, oftentimes it's taking action to do something that maybe you thought wasn't possible, but you do it anyway. And when you accomplish it, the amount of catecholamine, pheromone, hormone response that you get actually reduces your aging. It actually is another, you can do fasting, you can do cold exposure, you can do a breath holding to attack those senescent cells. You can also get a hormone response by doing something you didn't think you could do, achieving it, and then going farther. And to me, that's for my way of creating pro-vitality for myself and for the people around me, my community and my clients. I'm going to ask you to do stuff that scares the hell out of you. And that's my basis. That's where I think there's a lot of space for growth there.
Because also things the way of because more biohacking, more monitoring, more in following up. It's just more control. It's just more structure. It's just more round-headed. It's more. It just cage you. Doesn't free you up. But the way to go beyond your own limits is the way that people really grow.
Literally, I mean, we're building a project here called Agua Sagrada, and it's an action and adventure park, but it's really a wellness center that helps people to be able to mix those two things. This idea that a life without action is a life not very well spent. I mean, just like you, just because I happen to know that you just did a retreat and spent 12 days in darkness. I mean, to me, that would scare the hell out of me. And now I want to try it, because I was influenced by you.
Jeff, anytime we set up some days, and I'll be happy to be serving you, to guide you through, and to be there to hold the space. 100%. That's a fact.
I appreciate that, Isra.
For sure. What after all this work on anti-aging, what would you say are your most successful practices? Because how old are you, Jeff? If I might ask.
I am 49, sitting here today. I turn 50 in about 6 months.
So you look like 40, and also, as I happen to know your challenges, your experiments, the work you do, this power, because it's not also, the good looking is always good, it's aesthetics, but it's more deeper, it's more inner, it's more within. So how do you work with that?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't work on aesthetics at all. I work on practices that allow me to surprise myself through the achievement and the outcome. If it's okay with you, I'll give you a story. So we have here in Tulum on the beach, we have a sprint club, and we will do somewhere between 3 and 3.5 miles walking, jogging, running, sprinting. But I don't do a lot of cardio, but I can sprint the whole time. And I'll be honest with you, because to go back to the earlier question, spending as much time training in the ice bath and just enjoying the ice bath, not repaired, but improved my cardiorespiratory system to the point now where all that fun stuff I do, which would seem like work, like running sprints, is just easy. It's just easy. My mind isn't in the way when I'm in an ice bath. My mind isn't in the way when I go do sprints. And we do it with a football. And it allows for this amazing amount of dexterity and mobility. And I really contributed to that practice of getting in the ice when it feels right, staying as long as I want, not following anybody else's guide or parameters or anything, to be honest, has improved my health like crazy. And when I age and I know I'm improving my health, I feel great about myself. I feel great about my existence, and that comes back to that. I feel great emotionally and mentally because my physical body is aligned with my spiritual body. I'm doing the things that I love, but I'm not working on aesthetics.
Would you say that? What would you say are your most successful anti-aging practices? Then?
Yeah, cold exposure. There's no doubt about it.
Wow.
For me, cold exposure was something I grew up on. I grew up in upstate New York. I then spent 12 years in all the skiing areas of the U.S. I was always exposed to cold. And when I moved to the Caribbean, my physical body, honestly, like I got a little fat, I got out of shape, et cetera, et cetera. And when I was introduced to the ice, everything changed. The ice is a lot like jiu-jitsu. You can't hide. You can't fake it. You can't lie. I had a bad habit of lying to myself about who I was when I was younger. And I don't do that anymore. To quote the great Wim Hof, the ice is righteous and it's merciless and it's a measuring stick. And it helped me to level up in so many ways. And I'm in better shape now without paying attention to aesthetics or performance due to that practice. And I got to give credit where it's due. Right before I started to ice bath, I started to meditate. And I was influenced by my life partner, Janice White, who she had meditated for 3 years straight without missing a day. And she never once told me to meditate. She just told me one time, I meditated every day for 3 years before I met you. And I was thoroughly impressed. And when I started meditating and then breathing and getting in the ice, everything changed.
You mentioned also Wim Hof now. What did you learn specifically about Wim Hof that still significantly it is impacting you?
If I may, to take out a blowtorch and blaze your own path. He wasn't I can't imagine a human being with more intrinsic reward system developed than he. He just did exactly what felt good to him. And that's what I learned from going to that first workshop, which was taught by one of his instructors. And then I started to really study the person. And I'd always been kind of on my own path, but watching him do it in a way where he created a method in a community and helped so many people. That's when it started to have a real value to me. It was like, if I can do this and I can take my own blowtorch and make my own path and make my own method, I would say that he was the number one inspiration, along with Bob Proctor on the meditation side and Esther Hicks on the mind spiritual development side. But they walk their own path. They're not concerned with the opinions of mainstream culture or any individual. Laird Hamilton is another one of these people that I caught my attention. I just do it my way, and their ways worked. And I started doing things my way a few years ago, and it made a huge difference. It made a huge difference in my happiness. It made a huge difference in my satisfaction. It made an immense difference in how I live my life and how I can have an effect on other people.
That reminds me, very unusual, but I was hearing Johnny Depp doing like sharing something, and he said like everybody want to be themselves, but they can't. And when you think you can, you cannot. You make your own way, and the only way to live a fulfilling life, personally, deep, deep within, is following your own path. Just walking it. Right? It's so important, and we are just trying to emulate, trying to be others. Like
the kingdom of the universe is within. The kingdom of heaven is within us. We are it. We are cosmic royalty. We are gods. We are here for a purpose. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to live to be like 120 because this knowing had just arrived to me in my late 40s.
I wish we could have a conversation 60 years from now again.
Yes, I would love that.
I'm sure we will.
While we jump off some cliffs into water and go freediving. And
please, we do darkness and then we jump some cliffs. That will be challenging for me too.
I love it. I love it.
Jeff, what's your take on psychedelics for one side, and how do you see converging both psychedelics and cold exposure?
Oh, that's a great question. Psychedelics are like breathwork, are the magic carpet that can take a person on the ride, but only when they're ready. You know, I'd like to be really honest. I've tried every single psychedelic known to man multiple times. And when a person is ready, they can open up doors. It's like opening up one door that opens 30, that opens 120, that opens up 240. And what I mean by that is that it gives you a mirror to your soul. It gives you the ability to realize that, again, back to that idea that we are not bodies. We are eternal, no beginning, no end, spiritual consciousness. And when we connect into this idea that we are actual cosmic royalty, the psychedelics are the keys that start the engine to the car that allows us to drive down that road of enlightenment. And I started having psychedelics in 1994, and I had no clue what their value was. But I knew that when I did it, just kind of the same way as like when I would jump in the ocean and it would be 10 Celsius, I didn't really know what was going on. I just knew it made me feel a certain way, and I knew that I wanted to feel like that more. But I'll say this at this age, because my history with psychedelics is so long, I learned this, and I learned it from Bashar. Psychedelics want you to be a good student because they're amazing teachers. So I'm not a person who advocates for myself to go do 250 ayahuasca journeys or 250 ketamine journeys. I wouldn't be being a good student to these beautiful teachers if I didn't learn from these experiences. So while I love psychedelics, they have taught me so much, and I'm so honored to say that if you were to ask them, they would say, oh yeah, Jeff became a good student in his 40s. He learned from us. Because I'm a human being, Isra. I'm known to smoke too much cannabis, to do too much of everything. And within the last couple of years, I realized that these plants, these mycelium, all of these things, these chemicals are here to teach us, but you got to be willing to learn.
It's like Bruce Lee said, right? I don't fear a man who has learned or who has practiced 1,000 kicks one time. I fear the man who has practiced one kick 1,000 times. Yeah. Same thing with psychedelics. Is that don't fear or don't respect the man who has doing 20 times psychedelics in 1 year, but 20 years, one time a year psychedelics. That's the way I approach them. Same, being so extreme for everything.
I have a broad and vast and very practiced amount of experience starting psychedelics as a teenager. But I love to give that message to people all the time, no matter what they're going through, no matter what their trauma is. take the time to integrate what the teachers are teaching you. If you're having ayahuasca 15 times a year, it's possible that you're missing the beautiful message that's right there for you.
And now everybody wants to have more and more and more experiences. And how do you see converging psychedelics and cold exposure?
That's a really fantastic question. And I think it's either a lead in or an integration out. The cold exposure is going to allow a person to become hormone elevated and balanced. They're going to be able to have a connection with themselves and awareness of what they're capable of. So whether we're doing the cold exposure before the journey or one day after to integrate the journey to help them. So there's two ways to use it. One is to open and one is to ground. And when we use cold exposure to open, like we did last week at the ayahuasca journey, we used it as part. So we did breath work, we did the cold exposure, temescal, and then the people went into their journey. But oftentimes with psilocybin, we do the opposite. They do their journey, they get up in the morning, and then we use the ice bath to come back to who we are, to come back to finding who we are.
It's very powerful.
Yeah, because oftentimes on a journey, you go into other realms, right? So again, the fact that the ice is not one thing, it's actually many, many things, and it's ancestral. We can use it on both ends, and it's just the approach that we do it for. But I love to be the sober person who helps that person open up or come back within. That's where I think the ice is extremely valuable for people. I mean, you can see a person who maybe has trouble connecting with themselves. They've done a psychedelic journey and they've opened, and then they do the ice bath and they reconnect and they go, I feel good again. I feel centered again.
Insights. I never thought about this in such a way. And I've been very, very involved in psychedelics for a long time. But just very interesting insight.
The ice is like a deep connection with nature, right? Your ancestors, my ancestors, they needed to bathe themselves 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, and they didn't have hot water. So they did this. They did this in the history of humanity. And now we know this and we can use this. And then to take this idea one step further, if a person is about to go into a psychedelic journey or is coming out of a psychedelic journey, when they put themselves in water and they use their thoughts to meditate, to pray, or to visualize, the water structures around them like an analemma and allows them to become like an antenna. It allows those things to go out to the universe in a more prolific way. So that little bit of suffering and friction allows for so much growth, and it happens in a really acute pushing the button. You know, you're no longer turning a dial, you're hitting the button.
Jeff, what top skills have you successfully applied in yourself, and why?
You know, I don't want to use the word discipline or motivation, but to some degree, the skill of being able to be me is actually a form of discipline, right? It helps me to not go and try to be somebody else. So the discipline of getting up and doing my own practices has really helped me to find my own path, which then opens up all the other doors to everything else. The discipline to not smoke cannabis every day, the discipline to not have psilocybin every week, the discipline. Honestly, Isra, the discipline to be able to listen to other people and to connect with other people. And that's a skill that, again, I think I'm on a slow maturation process because I believe I'll live a very long time. But yeah, that ability to be disciplined, to be myself. And that includes all those things we talked about, all those breath work, meditation, diet, exercise, cold exposure, breath holding.
That leads me to a next question, which is getting up. What's your morning routine, Jeff? And do you have a night routine? If yes, can you tell us about it?
Yeah, happily. I get up naturally, unless there's something I need to get up for, like a business meeting. I actually like to get up with the sun. So that means typically I can see the sun where I live in Tulum around 7 a.m. But as I said earlier, I go to bed early. I'm not against a party every once in a while, but 98, 99% of the time, I'm in bed by 10 o'clock, sometimes 9:30. I'm up around 7. The first practice I do as I wake up and I'm in theta brainwaves is I tell myself, this is going to be a beautiful, prosperous, loving day. This is an amazing day to prosper and share love and create. I place a hand on my heart. I place a hand on my sacral center. And I have this very simple gratitude practice where I think of my niece and nephew who have a ton of gratitude for me. I think of my mom and dad. I think of my teams who all have gratitude for me. I learned that trick from Dr. Andrew Huberman because my old gratitude practice would say, oh, I'm really grateful for this life, which I still do, to be honest. I think a lot of times I'll say, I thank God. I thank whoever and whatever can hear me in my mind's voice, whoever that may be. I'm not sure who it is. Maybe those are your spiritual guides, right? So
yeah, right.
I'm giving awareness to who is grateful for me and who and what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful to my parents for giving me this genetic code that allows me to continually learn, to have this body that doesn't get sick, to have this mindset that is constantly growing. So that's the in-bed process. And then, I may stop by the bathroom for a quick pee and then instantly right out onto the balcony where I have all my plants. Like I have this amazing San Pedro cactus here that I sometimes bring around the house with me. That was given to me by Woody. And for those of you who don't know, his name is Woody Moores, and he's a very amazing and powerful human being.
He's been interviewed in the podcast too, so we will put his interview in the podcast show notes. Thanks for the mention.
An amazing guy.
He's uncomfortable man, I call him.
Right? What a gift to have Woody Moores in our lives, right? So Amen. I'm right out to the balcony. I'm connecting with nature. My balcony is filled with trees and hundreds of plants, and I touch the plants. And then I sit down and I give honor. I give honor to one of my mentors, to Wim Hof, and I do 3 rounds of 30 big inhale, passive, big active inhale, passive exhale, and I hold my breath. And, that takes me between 10 and 12 minutes. Then I'm right back. I'm right in, but my house is very open. The whole back wall of the house opens. So then I'm in. I have some salt water. I have a little bit of apple cider vinegar with water. I then right outside for a walk. I might make a shot of espresso. I might have a cup of tea. And then I'll jump on the phone and try to pop up a little bit of content to start the day. And then usually in the ice bath, and then off to some sort of work or event, because I host a lot of events. So, one of my big practices is I carry ice. I carry hundreds of kilos of ice every day. And that's how I've developed these strong hands, is carrying ice. And that connection to the ice is connection to the water, is connection to nature. So I take my dog for a walk. I connect to nature. I got a tree that my life partner and all my business partners would tell you I hug it every day. I say hello to this tree that's on the walk.
Love that.
I'm a hippie at heart, So, and then not unlike Woody, as I look down at my feet right now, I haven't put shoes on yet today. It's 3 p.m. I don't have any shoes on. I connect, I ground, I breathe. and then I go and get some work done. I love business. I love making money. I love making money with my partners and for other people. And I have these rousing conversations every day with the partners from the ICE method, from Agua Sagrada, from Metamorphosis, like rousing conversations that stimulate thought. I'm still pretty energetic, Isra. I don't really have to sit down until 9 or 10 o'clock at night. So I fast every day. Some days it's intermittent, some days it's 24 hours. But, I get my calories in. I love to cook. I love to cook for everybody around me. If you were to look in my kitchen right now, there's a huge pot of minestrone soup that I made yesterday.
I was going to ask you this. What's your eating routine and what's your typical meals?
Yeah, so it just depends. I cycle all different diets. So I just led a group of 65 people on a modified carnivore diet for all of January. And I say modified. We included, I ferment my own foods as well. I brew my own kombucha. But that diet was 90% carnivore, 10% fermented foods, and avocado with olive oil. And now, so we cycled out of that. So now for the next 4 weeks, I'll reintroduce fruits, some vegetables, and some nuts into my diet. I'll move away from so much complex protein, and I'll go more into fish, chicken, beans, and that kind of thing for the next 4 weeks. In between every 4 and 6 weeks, I cycle in a different diet. And then knowing that we have the retreat for Metamorphosis in May, I'll then go back into a more animal-based diet. I eat a lot of farm fresh eggs, which I really love. I drink a ton of kombucha. I love tea. I love soup in the winter. I've done I'm old enough to have done every diet from pure vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, pure carnivore, and everything in between. And I don't know if you know who Dr. Andrew Weil is. He's one of the original thought leaders in the space. And I heard him say this when I was a teenager. He said, eat as close to nature as possible. And one of my the things I'm most proud of, Isra, is that I don't eat anything processed. If it comes from a box, I don't eat it. I try to eat everything that's got a peel. And this is such a weird thing to say, but if it's got a cascara, if it's got a peel, if it's got skin, I eat it.
And Jeff, I interrupted you going through your night routine. Apologies.
Nighttime routine?
Yeah.
Usually 9:30, 10 o'clock, get into bed. I remind myself of between 4 and 20 things on a list that I have. I tell myself, I stand in front of the mirror when I do this, but the lights are dim. And I remind myself as I get into bed, the kingdom of heaven is within. I tell myself, I am consciousness, I am God, I am the universe, I am in connection. To have faith is to trust self. There's no reason to look in the external world. I'm looking from it. I am home. I am here. And then as I get into bed, and I do something funny, Isra. For a month or so, I'll get into the left side of the bed, and then the next month, I'll get into the right side of the bed. I'll brush my teeth with my right hand for a while. I'll brush my teeth with my left hand for a while. It's all weird, kind of quirky intricacies and sort of things that I do, but I'm constantly trying to never let the wiring become hard wiring. I always want soft wiring, So
I see you play with impermanence a lot.
Yes, all the time.
Because that's key.
I get in bed, I put the mask on, and as I slide into theta, I follow a Joe Dispenza idea that I recap the day. I think Dr. Daniel Adan does this as well. You recap the day, give thanks for what a beautiful day it is, and then think about what an amazing day that tomorrow is going to be. As I slide into theta brainwaves, I try to just think of love, how much love I have for this human experience that I'm enjoying.
And Jeff, so you were saying a lot of you were sharing a lot of habits, practices. What essential habits do you see missing in our surrounding, in the people that's in us, in people that is around, in everybody, like 'cause you work a lot of with in routines and retreats, like you are in, constantly reinventing you are, habits are a big important part of your life, and I'm sure you're paying attention to that too.
Yeah. As a collective, what's missing is community for a lot of people. This digital world that's being driven by the mainstream oftentimes doesn't allow people to create community and connection. And we have so many people. A very intelligent friend of mine said this to me. He said, "The world is lonely, and it's only getting lonelier as we interact, as a cyborg like this, instead of in contact with one another." I have the blessing to be able to hug 20, 30, 40 people every single day. People ask me all the time, why do you choose, you can live in anywhere in the world, why do you choose to live in Mexico? I said, because of the warmth of the people and the people who want to be in a place like Tulum. I hug my business partners every single day. We hug our designer and architect every single meeting we have. I hug everybody who wants to have a hug every day. And when I'm in New York City, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, I'm in Los Angeles, I see that missing in a lot of people, and they don't know or they haven't figured out how to go get it. And I'm so blessed to live in a place where people have warm, open hearts and they want to share. Man, I love to hug my niece and nephew. But I think collectively, and I don't want to go too far out on one end, but collectively, there's 50% of the world, the Draco reptilian world, that want to push fear on, that want to push us to believe that hugging and kissing and being in contact with each other is somehow foul or dirty or whatever. And I'm of the complete opposite, that, and I can prove it scientifically. If you and I hug, both of our oxytocin goes up. There's nothing wrong with being 100%. In contact. I'm so lucky and blessed to live here, to where when I greet somebody, it's right hand on the rib cage, left hand on the shoulder, big hug, but I was just in New York City last month, and I saw and I remembered growing up as a kid where that wasn't masculine. That you shake hands and you do it hard and you squeeze, and it's like, I'd much rather shake hands and look and then give each other a hug and make eye contact. And I think for a lot of the world, that loving connection is missing as a collective. And I think a lot of people, they want it, but they don't know how to get it, or they feel uncomfortable. So then they turn to a visor, or a screen or whatever. Or they turn to different things that aren't maybe positive, because they can't figure out how to fill their heart. So instead they think from a fear-based place that makes them react in a way that maybe isn't positive, or maybe even hurts other people. And, if you were to meet my friends, like occasionally I like to do jujitsu, but I hate hurting people. So I'm not very good at jujitsu. It's this idea, like I love the UFC, but I don't like imposing my physical will on people. I'd rather
practice kung fu. I practice kung fu, and I never practice, and I never put it into practice.
I'm the same way. Like, I've got a beautiful business partner that I live with. We hug every day. We slap five every single day. You make contact with each other. It's so important to let those people that you love know that you love them. And I think the world is missing that. And I understand, being the creator of cosmic royalty, I understand that the good and bad, the fear and love is intergalactic. It's interplanetary. It isn't just here on Earth, and it's as something that everybody everywhere in every universe is dealing with, And I want to perpetuate. I'm on the love team. I want to perpetuate this idea.
Me too, man. Yeah. Bring it on.
I want to perpetuate this idea that I'm here for love and to share it in every way it comes.
Jeff, what is the skill you wish everyone could master?
The ability to know themselves deeply, innately, and truly. I have a big family, and I'm so lucky and I won't go too deep into this, but on one side of my family, they really, really know themselves. And on the other side of the family, they don't. And I would love to see everybody be able to be comfortable with themselves and who they are, because as soon as I know you know this, as soon as a person becomes comfortable with who they are, they can go and then become more of what they are. And that's powerful. That would be the way to help every single person to live inside of a body that feels good instead of feeling bad.
And Jeff, that's incredible, because the number, from my experience, I work with 7,000 people one-to-one since 2010 to here. And the number one thing is missing is this inner knowing of who you are. Who you are is just a name, but the inner knowing, the inner exploration. If this is done, we're good to go. Everybody.
It's a funny thing to say, but I learned that from those last words of Steve Jobs. I followed his story, and I learned that, when you think about somebody who had so much quote unquote success, yet that success killed him in only 58 years. I learned that when I read those final words that he said, oh, wow, this perception of success without self-knowledge has no value. It has no value whatsoever. Because when you have self-knowledge, you have self-love. And when you have self-love, you have something to share that isn't in material things. It's in communication with one another. And that goes back to community.
That's it. Yeah, because it's all linked.
Yeah, exactly.
Jeff, tell me about your challenges, your struggles, and how you overcome them.
Yeah, we're going to dig in a little bit deep here. So my biggest struggle always, and it's still something I work on, but I've got a much better grasp on it now, but say for 47 years, was feeling valuable to myself, but feeling I was enough, feeling like I had something to share, because I questioned myself. And it goes back to the beginning of this conversation when my maturation process took a long time and I'm still in it. I oftentimes didn't feel valuable. Excuse me. When a person doesn't feel valuable, when I didn't feel valuable, I would take time to look backwards, which is useless. And then I would create anxiety about the future, which means I was never in the present moment. I could never be here now. I could never understand that right now, right here, everything is perfect and I have everything I need and want. And that's been my biggest challenge. And I'm really thankful that I have the programming that I'm going to live another 50, 60, 70 years in order to enjoy this way of thinking, because I didn't feel very valuable for a long time. And it wasn't 100% of the time. It would come and go and come and go. But when I dealt with the death of my sister back I started dealing with it in 2017 when it became inevitable. And then it went all the way through 2021. As that became heavy on me and I didn't understand who I was, I found myself trying to explore who she was with no understanding of either thing. And that left me in a place where I was suffering and felt depressed and didn't feel like I had any value. And you've noticed I've mentioned my niece and nephew twice now, and I've done that on purpose because now I feel that the knowing of myself and valuing myself and not trying to be somebody I'm not and not telling a story of somebody I'm not gave me all the power in the world that I'll ever need. But that's not to say that those voices have very little space in me now, but they'll never go away. And what I learned, Isra, was to acknowledge, not to hide from those voices, was to give acknowledgement and actually to give thanks to those voices because they served and they kept me alive, but I don't need them anymore. I don't need that voice or those voices anymore. So I say thank you, but I'm not going to operate from that place. I'm going to operate from this new knowing of self. But I'd love everybody to know that whatever fear you have before you get in an ice bath, before you do anything, we all have those fears. And the difference is the practice, whatever it may be, allows you to have control over those voices. But you don't want those voices to leave. You want to actually give them their thanks and their love and then put them where they belong instead of giving them the power over you. That's the struggle and the learning. But
nothing is left and nothing is missing and nothing is needed. It's just everything fits, right?
I'm cheering because I love how you say things, and yeah.
It's just because it's resonating like so much. I know why Jorge want us to meet. That's he's the wise person, man. So this makes me jump to another question that is like a very close follow up of what we're saying. What do you recommend for someone who is depressed or a person who just wants to leave their mood?
Take a moment. So if a person is feeling acutely depressed, like in this moment they feel depressed, stand in front of the mirror and repeat 20 times while looking at yourself, I love you. I love you. I love you. This is something that I learned. I picked it up along the way. And there's a difference between being chronically depressed and acutely depressed, right? Chronic depression is the lack of serotonin. We know that from a scientific and chemical point of view. But acute depression can come in a moment from having a thought that you can't get away from, right? And what I found is that if I have like in this moment right now, I have depression, I go in the mirror and I change my thought process by telling myself I love myself. And sometimes, man, Isra, it can be really hard to do that 20 times. But as you get deep, and it may make you cry, it may make you feel fake, but I can promise you, if you don't stop and you go all the way to 20 repetitions of that, chemically you will, that in the moment depressive thought pattern will leave. But if that depressive thought pattern is your default mode network thinking, it's chronic, you're going to have to go create some practices that allow you to get away from that allow you to get over that. And you're going to have to do that over and over and over again.
Jeff, I wanna, because I see the it's very close the depression, the anxiety, lifting the mood. Also,
Marta,
um,
porfis, no vacuum. Porfa. Okay, gracias. Hey, Isra, can you hear me?
yes. You? Hello? Can you hear me? Jeff? Jeff? Hello? Jeff, can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me, Jeff? Can you hear me, Jeff? Hello? Hello?
Hey, Isra, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I hear you.
Isra, since you can hear me, but I can't hear you, the screen went black, but there's still a green light next to your name, but
Yes.
the video icon and the voice icon
Hello?
is not lit up.
Uh, let's- Jeff, I was about to link the depression, like lifting the mood, anxiety. Can you tell us about your breathwork protocol, the story
Yeah.
behind, and at least 3 ways that have changed you and the people that you have shared it with?
Yeah, I mean, it relates really to when I started to develop a breathwork practice, it gave me a new tool. If I was having an acute depressive moment, or I was in a period of time where the loss was heavy enough that I was feeling like I was having more chronic depression, like it wouldn't go away, the breathwork practice made a huge difference. And it's so funny because I didn't really, I was a free diver before I had a breathwork practice. Yet I could hold my breath for a long period of time. But when I consciously started that breathwork practice, I could then use that time, that peace, that knowing of how it made me feel, to no longer feel depressed. So my practice of breathwork started with freediving. But my real practice of breathwork was that first time, what was it, 2017, when I learned the Wim Hof method for breathwork and I started doing intentional breath holds. And I just knew that for me, I'm somewhat achievement based. The achievement of being able to do a 2.5 minute breath hold, a 3 minute breath hold, a 4 minute breath hold, started to make me feel really good. And then I'll be honest with you, I was off to the races. I was like, I want to learn everything I can learn about breath work so that I can make myself feel better. So then it went from, free diving breath work, big wave surfers breath work. I used to watch these videos of Mark Healy, the big wave surfer, who would literally go in a kiddie pool and basically pass himself out unconscious and then wake back up again to make sure that his practice was going to keep him alive during his work. And I didn't want to take it that far, but
you hear me?
Isra, I lost you again.
It happened again.
Can you hear me?
Hello, Jeff. You hear me? Something is. It says that you hear me? Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we were speaking about breath work and my breath work practice. And as soon as I got into breath work through Wim Hof, I was off to the races. And the reason why is because the breath work made me feel better. The breath retention, the breath holding made me feel better. It was also a tool for my clients as well. When you help somebody to do something they didn't think they're capable of, that response in between the two individuals or the collective, if you're in a group, is really powerful. But you know what else really happened was when I started to do breath work with groups of people, I could feel the pheromone and hormone response, the energetic response from the collective. And that started making me feel really good. And I realized I was getting a serotonin boost from that. And that was the start of me being able to understand, like, I don't have to suffer from depression or depressive thoughts. I need to have practices that make a difference and stop that way of thinking or that way of being and the breathwork. So now I'm like a breathwork student. You know, I read every book. Every freediving book that is out there. I'm on Dan Brûlé's newsletter. Like I'm trying to pick up anything I can from anybody about breathwork. I love to do the sequence of 5 breaths a minute, 3 breaths a minute, 2 breaths a minute, 1 breath a minute. I've learned from Josh Waitzkin about the 4-second box breathing. I think breathwork is probably as old as humanity, and it has so much value. The breath is the only thing that you do from the second you're born until the second you die in interaction with nature. It never stops. What could be more powerful than something that lasts every minute of your life? And the knowing of that and its power has brought me peace. I'm so grateful and happy to say that I may have a depressive thought, but now I have a tool, and that's breath work, that allows me to no longer be chained or be imprisoned by those thoughts.
And what kind of breath works do you use to stop this process to get out of the depression mode?
So I do the one I just said. Like if I have a depressive thought or a thought that doesn't serve me, I'll stop what I'm doing. And if I'm in a meeting, I'll do it through my nose. Nobody knows I'm doing it. I'll do 5 breaths a minute. So I'll do inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's actually 6 breaths a minute. And I can tell you, Isra, even just doing it just now, just doing one little round of it, I felt my heart rate slow down. And I feel better. You know, I'll do inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'll repeat it on the exhale. That's 3 breaths a minute. Doing 1 or 2 rounds of that. And again, I can do it while I'm listening. I can do it in my head and I can do it through my nose so nobody knows I'm doing it. That changes everything.
One guest I had in 2019, Kamal Ravikant, a very interesting guy, told me one thing that I can say that is the most powerful hack I ever learned. And he said, whenever and wherever I can, I stop and breathe 10 times, you know? And has been, when somebody asks me, what's your favorite technique? What should I do? I say, stop as many times as you can during the day and breathe at least 10 times, but without counting, without hurrying, just be there, breathe. And now I try to not to count because that's tricky.
Right. That's a practice, right? That, when I'm doing it with people, I'm counting, or if I'm making content, I'm counting.
Yeah.
But I've done it so many times now that I can just do it. The other one I found really, really valuable is 1 breath a minute. And I do the air sipping technique. And this one I do when I'm typically alone. You have 30 little sips of inhale and 30 little sips of exhale. And it becomes rhythmic. And wow, is that a powerful tool? If somebody's having trouble going to sleep, have them do that practice, and you feel everything relax inside of your body. And I feel like, and maybe I could ask you a question, but what do you think is so powerful about it? Maybe it's just taking the time to go within, maybe it's just simply saying, I'm not going to think for 1 minute. I'm just going to be. And when I'm breathing, I'm being, and I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, no, it's just this. You take the time to stop and just to be with yourself. And in this time, you can think what you've done, what you think what you're going to do. You have extra time that you otherwise won't have. And this creates consciousness, awareness. And then it's a process of self-knowledge, as you say. Oh, that's very powerful.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, when you're operating from this conscious awareness, you're not your body and you're not your thoughts. You're just being. And that's like a reset switch. There's so many amazing thought leaders who care about the happiness and the progression of humanity, and they're all saying the same thing. they're literally all saying the same thing. It allows you to be, and being is wildly powerful.
Mm-hmm. What 4 persons have left you a mark and why?
Please repeat the question.
Yes. What 4 persons have left a mark on you and why?
Okay. So that's a good one. Bob Proctor, I brought him up a million times, and I learned so much from his approach to being. He was the one who taught me that I'm not a body, and I'm not my mind, and I'm not thoughts, that I'm actually consciousness. Just after being introduced to the world of Proctor Gallagher and Bob Proctor was Esther Hicks. Esther Hicks helped me to understand how to drive thoughts in a direction that served me best, and to not overanalyze anything, but to let things come to me. She said this, she said, 1 person inside of the vortex is more powerful than 1 million people outside the vortex. And what she was saying is 1 person in alignment is more powerful than 100 million people who are not in alignment. And that struck me. I went, whoa. And then I looked at what she said, and I could not deny that was a truth that I believed in. And wow, I mean, this idea that she could channel something that was for the betterment of all of us was hard. And so it's so dorky to say, but it warmed my heart. I went like, oh man, there is a collective here. It's not me versus you. It's not subject object. We are one, and this idea of being in your vortex of creation. I mean, the first times I heard her say that, it put tears in my eyes.
Yeah, I can.
Nobody spoke to me like that. I didn't understand that before. Joe Dispenza. The next one would be Joe Dispenza. Joe Dispenza saying, be a vision of the future instead of a memory of the past. The first time he said that, Isra, I was in that state where I could only think backward at all the mistakes I'd made and how I'd effed everything up. And I could only think forward with anxiety. And I heard Joe Dispenza say, don't be a memory of the past, be a vision of the future. Be a vision of the future. Don't be a memory of the past. And like the I love you in the mirror, I started repeating it over and over again. I would go for a walk with the dog, and my partner would say to me, you were just walking for an hour. What were you doing out there? It's 37 degrees out there. And just repeating this idea that made me feel okay, and this goes back to 2020, 2021 when I was having a really hard time. And man, Joe Dispenza has said more things that made sense to me than almost anybody else I ever met. And on top of that, his business model, like imagine being Joe, the chiropractor from New Jersey, to being what he is now. And the fact that he healed himself.
Mind blowing.
The impact he has on people. It's mind blowing is a beautiful term. Man, who do I give that fourth spot to? Because there's so many people that have had such an impact on me over the years. I could say Huberman because I do love science, like I am a sciencey guy, and he helped me to take some of these ideas and help me to understand why and how they are such, with the science background, why your hormones and pheromones are at play when you're finding happiness, why your mental connection is driven, your happiness is driven by your relation to serotonin, to oxytocin, to dopamine. He opened up that area of science that was reserved for scientists, and he helped me and so many other people to put it in a format that made sense and was understandable. But if I'm going to put them in the top four, I got to give one to my life partner, Janice White, she didn't do anything except for tell me that she meditated every day for 3 years. And then all of a sudden I was so inspired. I just said, she's happy. I need that. Let's go get it. And that wasn't direct. It was indirect, but man, it was powerful.
And if you could steal anything, what would you steal and how would you use it?
Oh, that's a really interesting question, right?
Now we go to the last part of the questions, which are more like kind of this.
Yeah, I like
the
this
interview.
Kind of question. What would I steal?
And how would you use it?
Oh, this is so funny. I would steal the knowing of how to eliminate the part of humanity that is rooted in fear. Because as we know, and I'm not going to throw out any names like Rothschild or Rockefeller, but we all have studied what they studied and how they did it and how they started to instill fear as a way to create business and motivate, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I would love to be able to steal that knowing and use that to create love, and that's kind of ethereal, but at the same time, that's really what I would do. Can you imagine if we were able to take a child and I know, right? Could you imagine if you could take a child and only raise them with love and positivity and never have them have to deal with fear? Can you imagine the world, how that would change the world?
The entire world.
Yeah, I would. I haven't. I love to curse, but I've been trying to be respectful. But at the same time, I would use it to fuck the cabal. I would use. I would use it to destroy the military complex, the industrial military complex. I would turn the world, and I keep saying the world, I would turn every metaverse, every universe into the most loving place. Because I do kind of understand, and I said this earlier, that I think the fear and love, Jim Carrey talks about this all the time. You can operate from fear, you can operate from love. That's not just here on Earth. And imagine if you could have,
That will
maybe
have an impact, an interplanetary impact, for sure.
oh, wow, where we only operated in love, in abundance, in divinity. And I like to think that place exists. And it's really possible that we move from one place to the other, and that maybe is heaven. That's nirvana, that's heaven, that's where we all ascend to. I'd love to think that. It sure serves me and us well to think that way.
Yeah, that's what drives us to be here and to be doing what we do, right?
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And it creates our power, right? It creates our power on the love side of things.
What goes beyond any reason.
Yeah. Yep.
What would you do distinctively if you were about to redesign how we live? Let's say our lifestyle.
Oh, that's another really interesting question, because it really it goes back to that idea that I would continue to seek communities that are based in the collective, based in love, based in harmony. We haven't talked much about harmony, but harmonious living. And that means being harmonious with nature, with humans, with spirits, with everything that we interact with. To be able to distinctively change that, wow. I mean, I think, we would start to live thousands of years, and it would just be based on, the yin and the yang would trade. It wouldn't no longer be fear and love. It'd be love and experience. It'd be all of these type of things that instead of having to have a dark side, to have the light side. And I haven't brought this up, but I'm a huge Grateful Dead fan and Jerry Garcia fan. And he would always say, in order to see the light, you have to have the dark. I'm not sure if that's true. It's true in the way we exist now, but I'm not sure that that's true in every 5D realm. I think there's places where it's all love. And
when you are in the dark, you don't see that. That's what the being so, because I've been 1 month on the dark, in darkness, and when you are truly in darkness, you don't see darkness. It's just, you don't see anything. It's just sunyata, emptiness.
Yeah,
and emptiness got everything, right? Just that powerful.
Emptiness is where all possibilities lie. When you're no one, no thing, no where, no how, you have no limits, no boundaries, nothing to hold you back.
That's it. You don't cling on into anything. It's just, you are like, you don't find the difference between flying and falling. It's just same, right? It's just
That's
like,
beautiful. That's beautifully put. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a code that I created. It's what's the difference between flying and falling, right?
Yeah.
And it's when you know that is when you flirt into this small gap between dark and light. Right? Dark and
I love that. I love how you said that. Like, what a beautiful place to be able to exist from, and to operate from, and that knowing. There's no fear there, right? It's just where all possibility lies, and that's a Joe Dispenza line, actually. But I love that.
How do you disrupt yourself, Jeff? Because that podcast is about disruption, and you, in order to break through, is a way of disruption that I'm sure you have. You are disruption. So how do you do it with yourself?
With myself,
Yes.
Constantly testing, changing, adapting, and learning. Life would be so boring for me if I wasn't constantly taking data, adjusting, changing, adjusting, changing. And I do that in my practices. I do that in my self-assessment when I fall asleep at night. I do that when I set the path of the day. If I'm not running my self-report card, I'm not doing a good job of disrupting the patterns that hold me, that shackle me to what I was. I don't want to be what I was. I want to be what I am right now. And I also want to be where I'm going. And for me, that disruption has to be done by having accountability to myself. I got to be able to look in the mirror and say, hey, Jeff, you didn't do a good job on that. And I got to be able to have that conversation, and that disruption and that conscious conversation allows me to get better that next day. Because at the end of the day, this idea that we're flawed humans, I'm not sure that I agree with that, but I'm far from perfect every day. But I'm striving to become the version of myself that I'm proud of every day. And I have to self-assess. I have to push the boundaries. And that's why, people look at me and they're like, what's the value of doing a 1 hour or 50-minute long ice bath? And I said, it disrupts what I think is possible within myself. And soon as I do that, I realize I'm capable of much, much more, because I'm not a body and I'm not my thoughts. I'm actually everything.
You are in that empty space where everything is possible.
Yeah. And no fault of anybody, including me, but for a long time, my default mode network thinking was limited. And now I don't think, I say this all the time, and I may end up proving it to be true. I'm pretty sure I could do the world record for cold exposure. I'm pretty sure I could do it mentally. I could get my body to do it. And who knows, maybe I will. But what I vowed to do is each birthday, I stay in the ice a minute longer, another minute. And I'll have to tell you, I get a lot of value out of that sort of challenge. And whether it's David Goggins or Jesse Itzler or any of these other leaders in that space, or Cameron Haynes, of pushing yourself, there's a lot of value in going to what you thought was your limit and going past it.
And Jeff, I had with breathwork, I have a question. I wanted to ask you this question because it's been popping up in my mind lately. How can you release more DMT during your breathwork?
Okay, so that's really interesting, because that, from the science side, that DMT pathway is in the melatonin pathway. So the first thing I got to do is close my eyes, right? Because if I've got my eyes open, one, I can see the world and my view is external. And as soon as I close my eyes, my view becomes internal. But by closing my eyes or putting a mask on, just like psychedelics, entering into that world, I start to trigger that neurotransmitter of melatonin, right? Then inside of that pathway, at the end of that pathway, through 3 or 4 different conversions, which includes vasopressin, I arrive at DMT. So the first thing I need to do if I'm going to access the DMT pathway is to close my eyes and have darkness. Then from that point forward, I have to be able to come into the most calm, conscious state of self. I even think of floating in between theta brainwave and alpha brainwave, somewhere in between, because I want to be able to access that pathway. And then what I need to do is similar to what you explained. I need to become the breath. I can't be breathing, because if I'm breathing, I'm doing something. I have to become the breath. And when I become nothing more than the breath, and I become deeper into that melatonin pathway, I then can access that place of what I call psychedelic realization. I haven't put any chemicals into my body. I'm asking my body to release the endogenous, the inner chemicals that I already have. And the more I become the breath and nothing more, the more I can say to myself, that's not even the correct word, the more I can become just the breathing. Then once I'm there and I'm my most calm self, I'll then put out a call. Now I'm reverting back and I'll put out a call and I'll say, I want more DMT. And I'm not joking to you. With the eyes closed, the mask on, I'll start to see fractals. I'll start to see that place of when I've experienced DMT from an external source. I think of the teachers, to go back to the psychedelics, the teachers never leave you. Some people just forget the lesson, but the teachers never leave you. They're there with you. That's a spiritual molecule, right? So when I just become my breath is the axis. It's the llave. It's the key to my spirituality. This is what I teach and I coach all the time, right? So when I become consciousness, I've now opened that door to be able to become a spiritual being, and the spirit molecule is there and I can just access it, and it is me. Sometimes I like to, it's part of me. Well, actually, it is me, just like the breath is me. But it all starts with this, from the science side.
After the call, we'll chat about the darkness experience, which is what the DMT release starts from day 7. Your pineal gland opens and everything starts happening the same way you did. It's darkness. You start. It's just unbelievable how many ways we can use to get into higher state of consciousness without anything external. That's the work people like you and I are here to do, and not just to see people that the psychedelic substance is inside all the time, right? And the inner master, the God, what the kingdom, as you say, the heaven, the paradise, as Bruce Lipton says, everything is just release. Jeff, I had to tell you on the 90 minutes that we were going out of the 90 minutes, but we passed that. So, but it's so interesting. It's so wealthy, so enriching. It's so useful what you're sharing. It's just five more questions to finish because it's just so powerful. Thank you again for giving yourself up to this interview, and the work you do is so passionate. I know you are highly disciplined. How do you maintain and raise those levels of discipline to those high standards that you live it up?
That's a really good question. So through the awareness of the benefit of the practices, I've now, I don't want to say circumvented, but I've created a circuit where that feeling, that value I get is the discipline. I know that's a weird way of explaining it, but I don't get up and be like, oh, I got to be disciplined today. I get up and I say, hey, Jeff, I love you. And then I do the practices because they make me feel, or they help me to feel the love for myself. So it's like a closed circle, right? Like the circle's always closed, and now I just exist inside of the circle. And the practices are just part of the circle that allow it to close. So I don't feel like I'm highly disciplined. What I feel like is I'm highly motivated to do the things that serve me best, because when I do that, I'm happy. And when I'm happy, I have so much more to give and to share.
Because you have found in the practice the realization itself.
Yeah. And when we got cut off earlier, we were talking about chronic depression. And I was saying how when you have that, the practices are everything. You got to do them. But as you progress and evolve, the practices become you. They are you. Just like the chemical reaction of DMT is actually you. Just like you are God and God is you and the universe is you and pure source energy. And so, yeah, it's funny. It's a funny way. I meet other people and they're like, wow, you're so disciplined. And I'm like, I just do the shit I really like to do. And then, and then the rest of it just comes to me. I'm not out searching. and that's really interesting. I heard David Goggins talk about that, and he goes, I might come off as really, really extreme, but I want for nothing. I want for nothing. And what an amazing place to operate from.
It's pure liberation.
Freedom!
In the way of discipline is incredible. What's the best way to motivate yourself?
For me or for others?
For you and for others. Let's see that.
Okay, I'll break them into two. For me, the best way to motivate myself is to understand whatever that thing that I'm going to do, to understand deeply how that thing I'm going to do is going to serve me. And it goes back to that idea. If I'm serving me, this is Esther Hicks, to be selfish is to actually care how you feel. When I learned that from her, I realized that when I feel good, my job is to be happy and healthy, right? And when I feel good, I can share that with everybody else. And that's what I've learned, is to take a deep dive, an analysis of how is this thing, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to motivate myself to do something. How is it going to serve me so that it can serve my organizations, my team, first myself, my organizations and my teams, my family, my loved ones, all of that. How I motivate other people is through, well, for lack of a better term, how I motivate other people is through being who I am, and telling them, I tell people all the time in breath work, I always say the same thing. I say, how old are you? And the person says, I'm 32. And I say, you know that you're a Jedi at breathing already, right? You never missed one. You haven't missed a breath yet. I love to empower people. I don't like the school of thought that tells somebody they're eating wrong, they're breathing wrong, they're sleeping wrong, you're drinking water wrong. I hate all that shit. I'm so much more powerful and helpful to other people when I empower them. So I try to lead by example. Another Esther Hicks line, you cannot lead from behind. I had that, Isra, written on my mirror for years. You cannot lead from behind. So I just go out and do it. And then motivation seems to be by leading by example. But I do it through empowering people that, how hard it is to live for 30 or 40 years right now? Do you know how hard it was for your ancestors to get you here now? And I use that, and I've done this a few times during this interview. I change the tone of my voice all the time, depending on what I'm talking about. And I do it in my breathwork practice when I'm asking people to actively inhale and then passively exhale. And I do it all the time. And I do that for people, and I tell them how fucking great they are. I tell them how wildly powerful and how they are a literal gift from God to be here now, and how we are so lucky to be here. And you know how hard it is to have arrived here? Do you know how many odds were stacked against you to be part of this cosmic royalty family? When you start speaking to people like that, they get motivated. They go,
they do.
What are you talking about? And I go, no, seriously, you're a gift. You're a gift. I'm a gift. We're all a gift. And that knowing opens up doors. And that's how I motivate other people. But it's the same voice, Isra, that I tell myself every morning and every night.
Because if you don't say to yourself, you cannot otherwise say to other people. Right?
And you it's one step more than believing it, right? You got to be it.
Yeah. Amen. What are those words that you use when things get dark and really tough?
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. So again, one of my mentors would say, hey, if you got a voice in your head, if you've got an analytical voice in your head, I call the space in our head real estate. And if that analytical voice is trying to take real estate, you're going to have to tell it to shut the fuck up. And I used that approach for a long time, but it only served me up until a point. And when I took that sort of hard-nosed approach and I turned that to standing in front of a mirror and saying, I love you. And you notice when you asked that question, I didn't have to think about the answer. It was right there. I'll force myself to look in my own eyes. I couldn't look in my own eyes for the first 44, 45 years of my life. I'd look in the mirror to see how I look, but I couldn't make eye contact with myself. And after a beautiful psychedelic journey, I started looking in the mirror and telling myself I love myself. So if I'm having a dark moment, I'm going right to the mirror immediately. And if I'm in a meeting or I'm feeling something, I'll say, hey, I got to use the bathroom. I might not even pee. I'm just looking for a mirror to get right up in my own face and tell myself I love myself. And when you do that 20 times, the first 5 might be hard. The next 5 get easier. The 10 to 15 or 11 to 15 gets easier. And by the time you arrive at 20, all the tension's gone. Those thoughts are gone because now you took that real estate back. You didn't let the voices have any space. You took it over and you put your own voice in front. And that I love you, I love you, I love you. And I make that sound on purpose because it's explosions of positivity.
It is. And just the way you share it, it just impacts me. And I'm sure to the audience that are watching or listening this episode for sure. 3 last questions. Could you share with us the steps you will tell someone to take if they don't feel successful?
Yeah, because that's a little bit different framework, right? So the first question that has to be asked is the why. What is it that you don't feel successful? And what part of your life don't you feel successful? And when the person says, I don't feel successful in my relationships, I don't feel successful raising my children, then we have to start as good coaches and people who are here to be both students and teachers. We have to give those people some tools because you can do what I said before, but if that person doesn't feel it, it's virtually impossible for that to become their reality. So instead, we have to identify what is the problem and give them tools in order to notice where they were successful. So I'll give an example. If a person doesn't feel successful at their work, I'll say to them, what are you doing for work? Is there something that you could do? I understand that you need to do this thing because you need to provide for your family, but it doesn't make you feel successful or happy. What can you do to create counterbalance? What can you do in your non-working time to generate revenue that makes you feel good? And when you help a person identify that, they spend less time in that unsuccessful mindset and they start to build things that allows them to feel successful. And that goes into love. That goes into money and work. That goes into all parts of life. So there has to be an identification. What's making you not feel that way? And then we have to go a couple steps further to say, hey, here's some tools that I think would allow you take a week, take a month and do it. And then let's have another session and let me know. And tools have helped me so much. Practices have helped me so much. And even though they're all out there in the continuum of everything, sometimes you have to have somebody show it to you or say it to you. And when a person doesn't feel successful, it's really, I really suggest to them to go find a mentor, go find a coach, go find somebody who can help you find that. Because oftentimes people feel so stuck. And when you're stuck, that's because your energy is stuck. And as soon as you find somebody who'll help you to it's a funny language in English, but to unstick or unstuck that energy comes and goes. It leaves you. And when you feel unstuck, you then open up to all the other things that allow you to then feel vibrant and to feel successful.
Jeff, what challenge would you like to launch to the audience? And what question would you like to get them to respond?
What is it? This is the challenge. What does it feel like to tell yourself, I love you in a mirror with your eyes open for 30 straight days. I would love to see what people come back and say who have the willingness to get up in the morning, get in the mirror and say, I love you 20 times. And every time you're having a thought that doesn't serve you, go to the mirror and tell yourself 20 times. And people, why 20? I said it earlier, because the first 5 are going to be hard. The second 5 are going to get a little easier. The third 5 are going to get easier. And by the time you arrive at 20, you're going to have no choice but to believe it. And the reason I know this is because if you love yourself, you're here. Anybody can not be here. You can choose to not be here in the blink of an eye. It's easy to do. But there's a part of everybody that loves themselves. And that practice, can you imagine if we could get 100,000 people to do that for 30 days? I mean, I'd lead it. I would be so happy to have that Zoom call every day, and
amazing.
that practice.
Yeah? It could be a wonderful experiment.
Whew. Can you imagine if we could put brain scans on and see what it does, and scan a person's brain and what happens to their thinking, and really fun. That'd be amazing.
That would be something to think about after the call, after the interview. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I'm in.
Me too. I think it would be amazing life transforming, self-transforming experiment for everyone, for us, for them.
It actually takes discipline to do that. It's funny how we round the circle, we close the circle, right? But you got to be disciplined to go do it when you're not feeling good, and to do that when you wake up in the morning. One of the hacks I can tell a person is everybody I know in this world brushes their teeth. You can do it while you're brushing your teeth, and you're in front of a mirror anyway. So it's a little hack that helps.
Jeff, if you were about to, what would be your parting thoughts and final message to everyone which is listening or watching this interview?
If you're listening to Isra García in his message, in his work, you are cosmic royalty. You are here for a reason. And that reason is to spread love around the world. You are a powerful human being. You are a powerful energy source. You are so much more than a body in your thoughts. You're an awareness, a consciousness, and you belong to a cosmic family of royalty that is here for the betterment of everybody, everything, and every thought that you have, everything that you are. If you're listening to somebody like Isra García, you're part of a collective in the world, in the galaxy, in the universe that stands for love. And you should be really, really proud of yourself for standing inside of this collective, because you're here for a reason.
Jeff, is where people can find you on the internet, where people can find you about your workshops, your work, your mentor, your coaching.
ICCE Method.com. Instagram, Jeff Daubney, Daubney, easy to find on Instagram. You can find me in Tulum, Mexico. I am not hard to find at all. You can find me every Sunday from 2 to 5 at Delec Hotel on the beach, running open to the public ice baths. In a short time, by the end of this year, you'll be able to find me at Agua Sagrada Adventure and Wellness. You can find me at metamorphosistulum.com. I'm available for coaching. I'm available in the retreat. I do public speaking. You can find me in an ice bath almost every day. I'm not hard to find. Those are the best places. Info at icemethod.com.
We'll make sure we put all the links and all the places people can find you on the podcast show notes. And finally, is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I want to say thank you to you, Isra, for being the bad motherfucker that you are. I'm pretty certain that I'm going to learn a whole lot from you. I'm thankful to our great mutual friends, Jorge and Woody, for putting this together. And I'm thankful for you taking the time to speak with me today and to have me on your show.
I'm thankful for the life you built and the impact that you have created in so many people, and how you use your power to enlighten other people, which is the most amazing thing a person can do in the world: to serve, to impact, to practice, to play, to love, and to live. And this, you are a great example that leads with its own life. So respect, as I said the first day, and thank you for having the delight to have you in this podcast, which has been one of the biggest pleasures I had in an interview, and also very impactful. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Isra.
Thank you for listening to the Disrupt Everything podcast series with Isra Garcia. You can listen to the podcast on any podcast platform or on isragarcia.es/podcast, where you'll find interviews with Seth Godin, Robin Sharma, Wim Hof, Kevin Kelly, Stephen Kotler, Joseph Ahram, Great Modern Stoics, Zen Masters, Shaolin Masters, Hollywood actors, New World sages, and many other disruptors, plus solo episodes with Isra. And the journey continues.